and things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Ciara Revan, and this is the Sunday 7.
On this week's award-winning Sunday 7, we look at big changes coming to social media moderation, a first-of-its-kind cancer transplant in the UK, and how robots are giving us emotional support. Our resident tech expert, Guyatt, will share his thoughts on Zuckerberg's new fact philosophy and what stood out to him at this year's CES Tech Convention. And remember the guy who lost his Bitcoin in a landfill? He's been stopped from looking for it. If you're enjoying our episodes, please do like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, we're here 7 days a week with the 7 biggest stories you need to know every morning at 7 a.m. on the Smart 7. Before we start, though, it was on this day in 2005 that NASA launched their Deep Impact space probe from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. The spacecraft basically carried a battering ram and hit the headlines the same summer for its planned impact with a comet. The 370-kilogram impactor slammed into the Tempel 1 comet at about 23,000 miles an hour, smashing it and allowing us to study its insides and reveal secrets about the early solar system. 2025 has already seen social media rivalries reaching new heights after Meta announced plans to replace their independent fact-checkers with a community-driven system similar to the way X works. Facebook and Instagram will allow users to add context or corrections to posts, mirroring the system that Twitter implemented and Elon Musk continued as the platform became X. Mark Zuckerberg set up Facebook almost 20 years ago and explained why he was changing the way its parent company Meta moderates content.
We're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, we're going to get rid of fact-checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US.
However, there are concerns that the decision to remove third-party verifiers could lead to a surge in misinformation and unchecked content on the platforms. Sarah Hanson-Young is a senator for South Australia and warned that the decision could be damaging for democracy, especially in the US.
Now, this is all about the tech billionaire sucking up to Donald Trump. We've now got a situation where we've got 2 big tech billionaires, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, thinking that they should run the world, that they should dictate what is said, who says it, how loud it is said, and whether it's truthful. Make no mistake, Mr. Zuckerberg's decision is all about maximising the profits of Meta, his profits, at the expense of community safety and human decency. It's got nothing to do with freedom of speech and all got to do with maximum profits.
As tech giants adopt similar strategies, it leaves questions surrounding the future of content moderation while balancing free speech and the spread of misinformation. Helle Thorning-Schmidt is the co-chair of Meta's Independent Oversight Board. They make independent decisions on the social network's moderation policies. She spoke to Radio 4's Today programme about the changes.
There's definitely an element of weighing in on the new political climate in the US. Of course there is, and we have seen that since the election of Trump. So I think they're trying to find a way of existing in this new environment, and that's why I think this is a time where the work of the Oversight Board is so important, because what we will try to ensure in all these changes that are coming is that there is transparency, that we can debate this openly, that we strike the right balance between free speech and other human rights, and that we engage the global community and users in this conversation.
It's been a massive week in the tech calendar, with the CES 2025 convention coming to an end in Las Vegas after showing off the best on the consumer market. The decade-long battle to recover £600 million in Bitcoin from a Welsh landfill has been halted by a judge. And like we said, social media sites Facebook and Instagram are scrapping their moderation policies, shifting towards a free speech model. Speaking freely about his thoughts on this week, it's the Smart 7's tech guru, Guyatt. So, Will, what do you think about the shift from Meta? Is it all about the engagement?
I think this is terrible news, to the extent I said it was the saddest day in my near 20-year career when I heard Zuckerberg deliver that turd sandwich of an announcement in a $900,000 watch in a video that would have been way better if it had been generated by artificial intelligence. This shift is all about who is in power in the US, and with Biden about to leave office, Zuckerberg has swept the board clean, changing in his number 2 in the company for a prominent Republican, Joel Kaplan, rather than former UK Deputy PM Nick Clegg. By following X in removing fact checkers and moderators, you're essentially saying goodbye to facts on social media. And Zuckerberg himself has said this change in stance will essentially allow more bad stuff to exist on his platforms, because he's suddenly following Trump's view that you should be able to say more of what you feel online. So either Trump has some really intriguing photos of Zuckerberg on holiday, or Mark Zuckerberg thinks going all in with Trump and the Trump administration will help protect Meta from the growing impact of big tech versus big law. This is bad news.
Let's talk about this year's Consumer Electronics Show. What kind of tech dominated the conversation there?
It's always hard to know what to talk about because there's just so much stuff on display at the Consumer Electronics Show, to the extent you can either focus on the profits and not the tech that's driving the conversation. So aside from that smart microwave with a 27-inch screen that can play adverts too, CES this year had loads of buzzwords. Artificial intelligence and autonomy were the main ones. And autonomy is the idea that we'll all be lusting after self-driving cars or even robots to do simple tasks for us in the future. AI appears in everything from new TVs to vacuums, products to look after your pets, and even sex toys. But in some cases, it's a challenge to work out whether its inclusion is A, genuine, and B, game-changing. But be under no doubt, there's loads of AI stuff around, and over the next 18 months or so, it's going to be up to us as consumers to work out what we really want to use.
There's been a lot of eco-tech about, but are companies delivering anything meaningful to combat climate change?
Green tech was definitely a thing at CES this year, to the extent that eco-machinery suddenly became its own exhibit area at the conference, with more environmentally friendly tractors and rubbish trucks on display. Volvo even rocked up with an entire fleet of electric fire engines. The buzzword when it came to farming was precision agriculture, the idea that using AI and advanced tech to improve the quality of what we eat while reducing the amount of pesticides and fertilizers that are required via technology. And it's not just that, companies are actually getting smarter about materials they're using in their products too, seemingly making better decisions about plastics and a bigger focus on being able to better recycle devices or repair them in the future. And that's a really good thing, because if the US government is going to start reversing from green and net zero, it would appear that the desire from consumers is still really high. I'm hopeful all this eco stuff continues and doesn't just become another buzzword to sell more kit.
We always see the brand new releases getting demoed and leaked around this time of year. Has anything caught your eye, Will?
Many of us here at the Smart 7 are eagerly awaiting the new games console from Nintendo, and we're confused, disappointed, but also amused in equal measure at Nintendo's alarm clock announcement pre-Christmas. But it appears that we're closer than ever to the announcement of a new Nintendo Switch handheld successor. It has long been rumoured to be released in April this year, and based on the number of leaks from CES, the console is already in the hands of a number of accessory companies busily developing cases and kit to protect your next favourite games machine. One business was so brazenly confident that they revealed a full-size 3D model that they claimed was an exact replica of the still unannounced console to showcase their kit. And in short, it looks like an update to the Switch with a larger 8.5-inch screen, bigger Joy-Con controllers and rounded edges to the machine itself. Now, we don't have many more facts than that yet, e.g. what games are coming and how good they look, but we must be pretty close to the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever it gets called, if accessory companies are already making their wares in time for the release.
And then there's the bizarre ongoing story about millions in Bitcoin sitting in a Welsh landfill. Can you get us up to speed with the latest, Will?
This ridiculous story seems to resurface every couple of years. I reckon this is like the 900,000th time I've spoken about it. It's got all the elements that a newspaper loves. The idea that there's now apparently 598 million worth of cryptocurrency buried on a hard drive somewhere at the bottom of a Welsh tip, after his partner took it there mistakenly at the end of 2013. The owner, James Howells, has been trying to get permission to hunt for it, and he gained the help of some US hedge fund backers who thought they might get rich quick. To make matters worse, or better depending on your view, he'd also offered the local council 15% of the total value if they'd let him rip into the tip. While the landfill in Newport holds more than 1.4 million tonnes of waste, Mr. Howells said he'd narrowed the Bitcoin wallet's location to an area of 100,000 tonnes. But he failed at the first hurdle this week, the legal case to either allow him to have access to the tip or £500 million in compensation failed when the court refused to even hear the case, largely because of the disruption, safety risks, potential costs, and the fact it would be like finding a needle in a haystack.
It raises questions about cryptocurrency protection and the risks of digital wealth. Are conversations around safeguarding digital assets happening?
This is why governments around the world are quite concerned about digital currencies. It's not just about stopping the new world order, it's about protecting people when things go wrong. If a bank in the UK collapses, you're insured to £85,000, but if something goes wrong with a crypto account or the currency collapses, you end up with nothing. The Biden administration in the US were looking into this, but with the return of Donald Trump, he said he's going to make the US a cryptocurrency superpower and promised to fire all the people in administration that were attempting to build in safeguards. Life can be confusing sometimes.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, a new moon mission to find out about the weather in space is underway. An incredible medical first has happened in the UK with a second chance of life being given to someone with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. Bianca Perea is from Wigan and after receiving a liver transplant has no signs of cancer in her body. The 32-year-old was diagnosed with bowel cancer in November 2021 and underwent extensive treatments including targeted drug therapy, chemo and surgery. But tumours remained in her liver. While transplants like this won't be an option for everybody, Bianca's oncologist, Dr. Kalena Marti, spoke about why she was considered.
When Bianca was diagnosed, she had bowel cancer, but the bowel cancer had spread to the liver. So the initial discussion that we had is that unfortunately there was not a surgical option for her. As the transplant program has been implemented in the UK, things have changed, and obviously that discussion shifted to that, we can't take a part of the liver, but actually because Bianca did so well on her chemotherapy, we could actually take away that liver that contained cancer, and she has a transplanted liver.
A suitable donor was found over the summer and the transplant was successfully performed at Leeds Teaching Hospital's NHS Trust. Dr. Rowe is an honorary consultant hepatologist at the Leeds Liver Unit and looks at how transplants could be used to help people with cancer in the future.
We're building on the experience that there is in Europe and in the US about which patients with advanced bowel cancer would benefit from transplant, and that's why all of those strict rules or criteria are in place to try and help us select or pick those patients who do best with a transplant, meaning, that after the transplant, chemotherapy is stopped and then they'll survive well, go back to normal life, cancer-free. That's the aim.
Since the transplant, Bianca has returned to her daily activities and has expressed gratitude to her donor's family. She spoke to BBC Breakfast about her optimism and gratitude for all of the medical professionals involved in her recovery.
I just know from other people that maybe sat at home that are stage 4 and they think that it's terminal, and I know for some people it is, but I want people to really believe that there is hope and there is a chance, and there's amazing doctors that are really working there to bring this in and help people. So, it's possible. In the increasing high-tech world we live in, it can be harder and harder to know when we're chatting with a real person and when it's some kind of AI chatbot. But until now, at least, AI hasn't been particularly emotionally aware. But that may be about to change, and soon AI could be ready to assist with your mental health. An emotional support robot called Romy has been designed to tackle loneliness and even depression. It's got a sleek design that would comfortably fit in your palm or pocket, and it sounds like having a therapist and life coach you can carry around with you. Using advanced AI, the shiny oval with a screen listens, responds and offers daily affirmations to help users feel supported and understood. Scott Paik is from Mixi Inc., the company behind the robot.
For a lot of people who are a bit more socially isolated, they don't have someone to really talk to, so they might go a full day without speaking. But in the morning, you can wake up and Romy will say, "Good morning." And when you're back from work, Romy will say, "Welcome home." You can always ask Romy questions. And unlike something like a normal AI that might just answer a question, Romy will actually converse with you. So something like, "Romy, I got some bananas today. Wow, they look great. Let's eat them together."
It was shown at the Consumer Electronics Show we spoke to Will about earlier, and it's certainly not the first artificially intelligent friend made for a human. Fluffy Labrador puppy-like robots were also showcased, showing a shift from virtual to physical robot companions. Yushu Zhou is the co-founder of RoboPet, and he showed off their product, which looked very similar to Romy. They were just a bit fluffier.
This robot, RoboPet, can understand people, human language, but will respond to people with their emotional behaviors and emotional expressions. When you connect to the ChatGPT, they have the ability from ChatGPT, they can talk with you.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, we catch up on a worrying viral disease and meet the first cow that's bred by IVF to not pass wind.
Right after this. Welcome back.
In space news, next week NASA will be landing a bit of tech on the moon that will watch the Earth's atmosphere to uncover key space weather mysteries. As part of the Artemis program, an instrument called Lexi is on its way to the moon aboard Firefly Aerospace Blue Ghost lander. It'll stay on the lunar surface for about 6 days, snapping X-rays and collecting data. The weather in space impacts us on Earth, and scientists want to understand more about when events knock satellites, mess with GPS signals and disrupt power grids across the world. O'Connor is a research astrophysicist at NASA and explained all about how Lexi works.
Lexi is a wide field of view soft X-ray telescope that will be deployed to the lunar surface. Lexi is designed to study magnetic reconnection, the process that allows solar wind energy to enter the Earth's magnetosphere. Changes in solar wind condition can trigger different types of magnetic reconnection, modifying the shape and position of the Earth's magnetosphere. These solar wind particles can be energized and creating space hazard for Artemis astronauts. And Lexi will be the first wide field of view telescope and observing this global interaction between solar wind and Earth's magnetosphere.
Could we be facing a new health scare? The EU is keeping a close eye on cases of human metapneumovirus or HMPV after an outbreak in northern China has sparked concern. Videos have appeared on social media of busy hospitals and mask-wearing crowds, which are being compared to the early days of COVID. The European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control says HMPV cases in Europe are typical for this time of year, but they're monitoring the situation closely. Julia de Oliveira is a professor of bioinformatics at Stellenbosch University in South Africa and isn't concerned at the moment.
It's a respiratory virus that causes normally common cold, less severe than flu. But in the very young and the very old, it can cause like flu-like symptoms,
And because it isn't a new virus, we've built up immunity. Dr. Simon Clark, a professor in cellular microbiology at the University of Reading, explains.
This is not COVID-2. The reason why COVID spread so rapidly around the world was such a challenge was because it was new and there was no pre-existing immunity in the human population. That's not the case with this virus. We've known about it for over 20 years now, and it's been around for decades. So there is much greater coverage in terms of immunity around the world.
The world's first IVF dairy calf bred specifically to produce less methane has been born. It's a momentous step forward in tackling emissions in agriculture, and it could revolutionise dairy farming. Methane is released by cows as they digest their food and is still one of the biggest environmental challenges facing agriculture. Research led by a team of scientists at Scotland's Royal College helped breed Hilda, the low methane calf, using advanced genetic screening to produce food without making methane. Professor Mike Coffey thinks his cows will make greener produce.
It's a big moment, all right. This is the first calf that's been born and bred expressly for reduced methane emissions in dairy cows. We have for 40 or 50 years been selecting animals for improved productivity, improved health and welfare, reduced size and so on. But this reflects a change in emphasis now to include selection for animals that produce less methane compared to their herd mates.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.